These were the images of my childhood view of Methodists. Hard-working, responsible, mature grown-ups in a small West Texas town. These were the folks on Sunday mornings who surrounded my family in pews that were cool and old and smelled slightly of funeral flowers. Each Sunday, I was more interested in seeing than hearing the sermon. I watched the choir in their black robes while Mrs. Hooks accompanied them on the organ. She never seemed to move her head, and the way she moved her hands seemed to fit her name. Her husband's name was Claude, and it made me laugh. Every Methodist woman wore hat and gloves and hose and heels of varying heights. They were tightly girdled with foundations that allowed little room to move. And I dreaded the time when I had to grow up and wear only dresses and hose and call my friends Mrs. Adams and Miss Smith. Only the men were allowed to take up the offering, and I so wanted to do that when I grew up. I always watched Mr. Merritt with awe and wondered how he kept his eyes on the heavy golden plates piled with papers and money and change coming across behind him while carefully passing another full one to the row in front. The men always met in the church basement wearing their one suit for Sundays. They all smelled of naphtha, a petroleum product their wives used to dry clean their clothes. They could not be scrubbed in the 4-tub washer and wringer in Mr. Morris's laundry. I liked to sit behind these men and look for the line on each of the leathery necks where the hat shielded bald heads from the sun. I couldn't always see where Mr. Post sat, but I knew he was there when I heard him clip his nails 2 pews over. You could count to 10 with him. Mrs. Fox had an older husband who did not come to church. She brought her little Freddie everywhere, and he would always sit on her lap. I never pictured him sitting anywhere else for the rest of his life. Mrs. Pigeon dressed nicely and smelled like flowers. She had a husky voice and laughter in her smile, but walking seemed so hard for her, and it took her a long time to get from Sunday school to church. Now I can only imagine how hard it must have been for her to dress and get to church. The Methodist men and women of my photo had faith in God that provided the will to build a 3-story Sunday school building in a 1-story town. It's still the tallest building in town, and because of them, generations of future children could be taught through Methodism to love their Lord and to love and serve their fellow man. All these years later, I look around First Methodist Church and I see the changes and where we are now. And I wonder, what will these children see when they look back at my picture?